If you watch the behavior of our federal government, you realize the actual people who live in this country and fund this gargantuan money pit are about the last priority. We send trillions to Washington every year. The average responsible American with a job gets very little in return. After a devastating hurricane in the southeast, FEMA, a government agency created purely for moments like this, is promising a meager $750 in immediate assistance to thousands of people whose lives have been destroyed, the people that fund FEMA. Our government being a little tight with the funds for Americans, by comparison, we have dumped billions and billions and billions onto the manufactured migrant crisis in this country. Illegal aliens invited here by the White House to be the next generation of Democrat voters. In the state of North Carolina, parts of which have been ravaged by Helene, the federal government has handed out nearly $2,000 per illegal immigrant in the state. Kamala Harris should have thought about the optics of that number when she said this yesterday.
The federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met, such as food, baby formula, and the like.
2,000 versus 750, and then you think about Ukraine and everywhere else in the world. Migrants are getting free hotel rooms for months on end in our biggest and most expensive cities. And today, Alejandro Mayorkas told Americans, pray there's no more big hurricanes this season because FEMA will likely be broke after taking care of Helene. Quote, we are expecting another hurricane hitting. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season, which is another month, by the way. A report shows in April of this year, FEMA, which is for emergency management, announced $640 million in new funding, $300 million for direct funding to help immigrants settle in the U.S., the other $340 million to cities via grants for the exact same purpose. Emergency management, also bringing in migrants and helping them just move into your city for as long as they want. It's another prime example of how good they are at wasting your money on everything except you. And here's another one. The video behind me, the now infamous Gaza Pier. Built by Joe and Kamala in a desperate attempt to hold on to the Arab American vote, Biden announced plans for a pier in Gaza to help bring aid to the Palestinians. He proudly announced it during the State of the Union.
Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day.
Oh, really? We're America. There's nothing we can't accomplish for everyone else in the world. The Gaza Pier costs $320 million of your dollars to build. $320 million. That's enough money to buy Gaza. The pier itself lasted a month. And after delivering a, quote, negligible amount of aid, it began to sink into the Mediterranean. It was shut down 5 weeks after it was completed. $320 million. It should have lasted until the end of time for that much money. What a country. On Monday, former President Trump led the way in getting attention for the battered Southeast after Helene. Visiting Georgia, Trump was briefed by emergency officials. That day, it honestly felt like he was still the president. Biden was at the White House eating baby food. Kamala was in San Francisco partying. Here was Trump.
As you know, our country is in the final weeks of a hard-fought national election. But in a time like this, when a crisis hits, when our fellow citizens cry out in need, none of that matters. We're not talking about politics now. We have to all get together and get this solved. We need a lot of help. They have to have a lot of help down here. We look out for one another. We pull together. We pitch in. We persevere, and we pull it through. That is really the American spirit.
Well, after Trump did that, they scrambled Kamala up to finally speak about the hurricane, and she did so from Washington, D.C. at a call center. before finally heading to Georgia yesterday. Check out how Politico reported both the candidates and the response to this hurricane. Harris consoles those devastated by Helene in Georgia, a contrast with Trump's visit. The former president made his visit political. The vice president kept hers focused on disaster relief. That was not even an op-ed, by the way. That's actually a news article from Politico. Trump arrived first and started a GoFundMe, which has raised nearly $5 million for everyone who's been affected by this disaster.